A new Hill-HarrisX survey asks voters, are you excited to vote in the 2022 midterm elections next November or not? Let's take a look at that. The poll found 61% of all voters are either very or somewhat excited. That includes 67% of both Republicans and Democratic voters and 49% of independents. 70% of men said they are excited to vote in the 2022 midterms compared to 55% of women, while voters with 4 or more years of education and higher incomes were more enthusiastic to cast their ballots next November. I'm not looking forward to voting because
I can't wait. I'm going to go vote right. I'm going to leave and
you're going to vote multiple times.
Yes,
that's
right.
Don't. Donald Trump will be very cross with you if you do that.
Yeah, he wouldn't approve of that at all.
Not approve of that.
No.
I don't know. The elections are higher and higher stake every time. I used to make fun of politicians for saying this is the most important election in our lifetime, which they always say. It's not. How can it always be the most important election in our lifetime? But it's true in a sense because the government does more and more things and spends more and more money, and the stakes are higher because the bickering between the two parties is so, or the gulf between what they want to do is large, or their approaches, how much they viciously hate each other, how much we hate each other as members of different tribes. So. But now none of that makes me excited or enthusiastic about the process. But as a libertarian, I'm probably a crazy
Also,
outlier.
as a D.C. resident, to be clear, we don't get to vote in this upcoming midterm.
That's true, too.
Like, quite literally.
That's true.
We are not allowed. We're barred from voting in this.
I wish I could. I would be excited if there was any possible way at all to voice my dissatisfaction with how the mayor of D.C. has handled mass in particular, schools, etc. I would like to. I would vote for any other Democrat. I would like to just punish, not her party, just her specifically. I would like to punish. That is unfortunately impossible to do because she faces no opposition or just token opposition. So it's not a. Also, for people who don't fit neatly into one ideological category or the other, I just vote for the libertarian candidate who gets.
Well, you have to register as a Democrat,
right?
And actually, that's what a lot of Republicans do in like heavily, Democratic areas, and Democrats do it in like deeply rural areas because the only game in town is the primary. But it's fascinating though that despite the approval numbers that you see, you would expect Democrats to be depressed. And to be expressing a lack of enthusiasm for the upcoming election. And you would expect that people with a 4-year degree who are leaning heavily Democratic at this point would similarly be expressing a lack of enthusiasm flowing out of that 35% or whatever approval number that Biden's sitting on right now. Instead, you see people equally fired up, and it's our new obnoxious reality that no matter what, both sides are just whipped up into a frenzy constantly, except with independents being like, ugh, no, not so interested.
Knowing what they're going to get, knowing they're not going to like what they're going to get, correctly knowing they're not going to like what they're going to get, regardless of what it is. New research shows Republican voters continue to demonstrate low confidence in the integrity of U.S. elections. A Monmouth University poll conducted between November 4th and 8th and released on Monday found that nearly a third of all respondents, including 73% of Republicans, believe that President Joe Biden only won the 2020 election because of widespread voter fraud. Another poll conducted by a nonprofit election think tank, the Center for Election Innovation and Research, and Republican pollster Echelon Insights found similar results. 65% of Republicans surveyed don't think the votes cast in the 2020 election were counted fairly, and 53% don't think the votes in 2022 will be fairly counted either, which that is a problem for Republicans because you don't want the base. You don't want any single person who could conceivably vote for you to think, well, it's rigged, I might as well not bother.
Well, yeah,
which is Trump's message.
Yeah, and Karl Rove's analysis of Georgia, for what it's worth, is that in areas that Trump did extremely well, a lot of Republicans didn't come out in the Senate elections, the Senate special elections,
Absolutely.
because they were convinced that it was going to be rigged. Perhaps they will look at Virginia and see like, oh, we got more votes in Virginia, and the Democrats let us win, so maybe we were wrong. More likely, the people who are convinced of this will be like, oh, that's just a trick.
That's what they want you to think. They let you win every other election, so you don't know.
Right. Don't take those Virginia gubernatorial crumbs when the big kahuna is the White House. They're just kind of keep your eye on the prize. So it didn't dampen turnout in Virginia. So that's the upside for Republicans here, is that, and particularly in rural areas. Youngkin did incredible in driving out the vote. So, if those folks are saying that they don't trust elections yet are still coming out in these massive numbers for Youngkin, then this probably isn't something that's going to hurt Republicans as much as it did in Georgia, because you had everything colliding there.
Right.
And
Democrats have also complained that some Democrats were not, including Hillary Clinton, to some degree herself, were not fully, now it was not to the same extent as the Trump contingent, but in 2016 about, well, this was an illegitimate election, because of all that stuff. To me, they're separate. In 2000, Democrats will say that was illegitimate, but they will tell that election was illegitimate.
Right, they'll tell you exactly how it was illegitimate.
The 2000 election wasn't. No one won because it was wrongly conducted. Is what I would say.
And the Supreme Court decided it. So you can say, well, that's why that was illegitimate. Hillary Clinton she's saying, well, Vladimir Putin, undid me, but that doesn't have anything to do
with the election,
with the vote counting. Like, she doesn't actually challenge. Whether or not the votes were counted right. Now, Democrats flirted with that in 2004 with the Diebold machines in Ohio in particular.
I forgot about those.
Robert F. Kennedy did a big thing. Robert F. Kennedy has continued to, look for people behind the curtain involved in a lot of different things. RFK Jr. That didn't gain much traction with the Democratic base broadly. And mostly their complaints have just been whining about the process. Some legitimate, some not. 2000 legitimate, 2016 not. Rather than saying the votes aren't going to be counted right.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, I think they'll probably turn out. Even though they. Yeah,
well, turnout was so high last election. Democrats used to think we want all the high turnout because this favors us.
Right.
I think
it depends.
High turnout does not necessarily favor, and Trump causes high turnout for him and also against him. So the question will be, can you inspire, if you have a non-Trump Republican candidate, can they still get the turnout, maybe without turning off that slice of the electorate, a significant slice of the electorate that wants that wants Republicans and Republican policies but cannot personally stand Trump and is turned off by him.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. We'll have more Rising after this.